really think, Jackie, that was what David Cameron was aiming to do? I mean, a couple of, 100 people marching in Luton does not mean the Prime Minister of Britain should not be making a speech about a very serious matter.
But if you put yourself in the shoes of a British Muslim in Luton or in other cities where the EDL have marched who live in fear of those groups, then I think they have a right for their Prime Minister not to go abroad to Germany and send them lectures from there on who isn't and isn't an extremist. You want to give a speech on multiculturalism? Give a speech on multiculturalism. You want to give a speech on counter-terrorism? Give a speech on counter-terrorism. Don't pretend they're one and the same thing.
Sadly, the tolerance of this country has been abused by certain religious groups.
The people who carry out acts of terror, who say they do it in the name of religion.
They also say they do it because of foreign policy, and you always ignore that bit, don't you, Douglas?
No, I don't.
When they say they do it because of Iraq.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are good. Guys, today we're going to be reacting to Douglas Murray and Melody Hassan on Question Time Highlights. Guys, let's go right down to this.
Is it right that MPs tonight chose to deny prisoners the vote?
I don't agree. The man who brought this case to Strasbourg, John Hurst, was sent to prison for bludgeoning an old lady to death. The European Court of Human Rights decided his human rights had been violated by not having the right to vote. I think he violated every imaginable right of the woman who he bludgeoned to death and still isn't sorry for. I think that this case points to the terrible thing that is happening in Strasbourg, which is that activist judges and ambulance-chasing lawyers are creating a situation where the ordinary human rights of ordinary people are routinely being trumped by the unordinary rights of people who have behaved appallingly in society. And I have to say there is one other reason why I think this is an important thing, which is that when David Cameron was asked about this at Prime Minister's Questions, he said that the idea that Strasbourg could force prisoner votes on this country made him feel physically sick. There is a serious democratic problem when something which has no support in the House of Commons, very little support, I think, in the country, and something which makes the Prime Minister sick is nevertheless forced on this country. So I think there's a second reason why this is a good thing, which is it has shown that our Parliament remains sovereign and can override and ignore decisions from Strasbourg. That is a very important precedent.
And only an hour to do it in. Carl Belizaire, please.
Do you agree with David Cameron that multiculturalism in the UK has failed?
This is the speech that David Cameron made this week, where he talked about the doctrine of state multiculturalism, that had encouraged different cultures to live separate lives. We failed to provide a vision of society to which they feel they want to belong. We've even tolerated segregated communities behaving in ways that run completely counter to our values. Douglas Murray.
Yes, I think he was right. And I think we should start this by just reminding ourselves what multiculturalism is not. Multiculturalism is not multiracialism. It isn't pluralism. For years, the multicultural policy has been able to glide along, in part because of that misunderstanding. Because of the misunderstanding that when you talk about multiculturalism as a policy, what you're talking about is solely immigration, or multiracialism, or so on. It's allowed itself an incredible easy ride, not least by the fact that this confusion has meant that any critic of multiculturalism has been immediately decried for years now as a racist
What
of some
do you understand
kind.
by multiculturalism?
Multiculturalism as a policy, as a policy, multiculturalism is the following. It is the idea that there is effectively no such thing as British society or British culture. There are simply different communities which you're born into. If, for instance, you're born into a community from an Asian background, you will be treated by government throughout your life as a member of the Asian community. If you're born into some other racial or religious grouping, you'll be regarded in that way. And that anything in that group could be different from what the norm in society goes on. Let me give one quick example I gave in an article yesterday in the Wall Street Journal. It's been quite commonly known in recent years, for instance, that girls of Pakistani origin have, at the age of 16, been taken out of British schools and married to older men. Now, if a white girl of 16 over recent decades had been married against her will to some randy old pervert who wanted to have his way with her, the state would have stepped in. It would have rightly said that that was an outrage. But, lo and behold, 16-year-old girls of Asian origin disappearing from their schools, nobody wanted to mention it because it could be thought to be racist. The idea was that there are different values for different people in society, and there is nothing more divisive than that, and I'm glad that David Cameron has called time on it.
Mehdi Hassan. Different values for different people in society.
Well,
and it's time
in answer to the question, I think he's wrong. I don't agree with Douglas's definition at all. I believe I'm a product of multiculturalism, not just multiracialism. My father came to this country in 1966. He used to write lots of letters to newspapers with his views on the stories of the day, and he used to get dog litter through his letterbox in response. That 45 years later, in my view, 45 years later, his son can sit here on Question Time with David Dimbleby and a Conservative minister and say that I'm a proud Briton and a proud Asian and a proud Muslim. I think is a testimony to the success of multiculturalism in this country, which is definitely not far too easy. And just on Douglas's point about anyone who goes against multiculturalism is regarded as a racist. A, that's not true, but B, let's look at the reaction to David Cameron's speech. Nick Griffin said it was a provocative speech. When Nick Griffin says your speech is provocative, you know you're in trouble. The daughter of the leader of the French National Front, Jean-Marie Le Pen, said she wanted to congratulate David Cameron on his speech. And the leader of the EDL in Luton said, he's saying what we're saying, he knows what his base is saying. So when I hear reactions like that, I do worry about such speech.
Well, what do you think he was getting at? What was he trying to say? Do you think he was speaking in a way that he intended to appeal?
I think he did, and it's sad because, look, I'm quite critical of David Cameron, but in 2007 he wrote an article in The Observer in which he said we can't bully people into Britishness, we have to inspire them, integration is a two-way street, it's not just about immigrant communities, it's about all of us. And that David Cameron disappeared. 4 years later he turns up in Munich, of all places, to tell us that we need this muscular liberalism and to talk like Douglas about forced marriages. Sorry, how many people have forced marriages in this country? And show me which cultural group defends forced marriages and which government defends forced marriages. I've yet to come across a single one.
I've been very lucky. I've lived and worked all over the world. And Britain is by far the most tolerant society I've ever come across. However, what I'm concerned about is that I think Douglas was right. What seems to happen is when something is said, there are minority groups of growing vocal ability who will find offence in whatever you say and find a channel to get that offence shouted about. And that, I think, is part of the problem we've got now. But the bottom line is we are an incredibly tolerant society, and we should be very, very proud of that.
Jackie Smith. Douglas Murray, do you want to come back on what Mehdi Hassan said?
Well, look, I mean, both of the sort of left-wing people on the panel tonight, Mehdi and Jackie Smith, if you can still call Labour members left-wing, but both of them have done the same thing the left always does on this. You try to have a discussion about the failure of multiculturalism, and you have the BNP thrown in by Mehdi. They're told, well, the BNP member congratulated him. At least concede, Mehdi, all sorts of crazy and horrible and disgusting people can jump on a bandwagon without meaning that it's the wrong thing to have said. Maybe they're just opportunists. I suspect they are. And Jackie then throws in the example of the EDL and thinks, do you really think, Jackie, that was what David Cameron was aiming to do? I mean, a couple of, 100 people marching in Luton does not mean the Prime Minister of Britain should not be making a speech about a very serious matter. And this is a problem. The debate by the left is always attempted to be shut down by associating it with far-right extremist and racist groups instead of having a frank and honest discussion.
I did not say that he shouldn't make the speech. And I said I thought the argument he made in the speech was right, and incidentally, it was one that we had previously made. What I said was it would have been appropriate, given that speech, to also say that when we're promoting shared British values against Islamist extremism, we should also do it against right-wing extremism.
I think you can belittle the idea of a couple of hundred extremists, but if you put yourself in the shoes of a British Muslim in Luton or in other cities where the EDL have marched who live in fear of those groups, then I think they have a right for their Prime Minister not to go abroad to Germany and send them lectures from there on who isn't and isn't an extremist.
Take a couple of points from our audience, and then we'll go on to another question. The gentleman there, you say. And you, sir.
I mean, I agree with the gentleman who just said that Britain is a very tolerant society. Yes, it is very true. It's a very, very tolerant society. Sadly, the tolerance of this country has been abused by certain religious groups. And I completely agree with Douglas Murray when he said that Mr. Cameron has done the right thing. And I hope Mr. Cameron means business. Now, Mr. Cameron was making this speech in the context of terrorism. And what he was trying to convey a message was how we target terrorism. Unfortunately, this country in the last 15 years has not addressed the root cause of terrorism. The root cause of terrorism is bad teaching in religious schools, and that has to be addressed fundamentally.
It's rubbish.
You're saying rubbish.
Rubbish. I mean, very briefly, we didn't get into this, but one of my other objections to David Cameron's speech is the idea, you want to give a speech on multiculturalism, give a speech on multiculturalism. You want to give a speech on counter-terrorism, give a speech on counter-terrorism. Don't pretend they're one and the same thing. Don't offend our intelligence. Terrorism is not a cultural problem. Terrorism is a political problem.
No, and it's a religious problem as well. And it's a religious problem.
In your view, Douglas.
No, in the view of a lot of people, including the people who carry out acts of terror, who say they do it in the name of religion.
They also say they do it because of foreign policy, and you always ignore that bit, don't you, Douglas?
No, I don't.
When they say they do it because of Iraq, you don't notice that bit.
At least listen to the reason they say they do it.
Agreed. So why didn't he talk about foreign policy in his speech on Saturday?
I'm willing to talk about foreign policy, as would David Cameron be. But you cannot keep on pretending that there is no religious component to the terrorism, because there is.
I thought you said it was cultural.
No,
Culture and religion is not the same.
Stick with religion. You're saying there is no religious component.
I'm saying there is a religious component. I'm saying it's not a cultural component. The people who blew themselves up on the London Underground were not people who couldn't speak English or didn't go to secular schools.
That's the tragedy of it.
Well, then don't say it's a cultural problem.
No, but you're
don't pretend that forced marriage.
Because maybe you're doing what you're
doing. Don't speak at once. Nobody can hear. So let's have a little bit of order, shall we? Let's have a question, please, from Gemma Perlin.
Could the introduction of democracy to Egypt have the effect of destabilising the Middle East and lead to a string of anti-Western extremist Arab states in the region?
The first thing is that to get back to the question, I mean, the issue of democracy across the region. Some of us have been arguing for many years that Arab states, Muslim majority countries, have the same desire for democracy as the rest of the world. You used to hear people say about the Eastern Bloc, the Eastern Europeans can't cope with democracy. Lo and behold, they could. You used to hear it said about South America, the same thing. South Americans somehow can't cope with democracy. Lo and behold, they could. And the same thing is becoming clear across the Arab and Muslim world. The Lebanese Druze leader, Walid Jumblat, said that the sight in 2005 of Iraqis going to the polls for the first time would have in time a seismic effect in the region, because people would not see their neighbours going to vote and not want that themselves. Now, this is coming sometime after most of us expected it, but there are obviously problems, and it's naive to walk into this and ignore some of the problems within Egypt.
Do you see Mubarak, as Mehdi Hassan said, as our person, the West's person in Egypt?
No.
Or do you think we should have...
I think it's equally patronising to the people of Egypt to assume they have had no role in their own country. However, the West has had a very complex and, I think, unfortunate, regrettable situation in recent years of thinking that stability and the pursuit of stability in the region was the most important thing. That has come back to bite us again and again, not least in the rise in anti-Western feeling across the region. There is a problem, though, and it has to be flagged up, to go back to the question, which is the Brotherhood. The Brotherhood, if it didn't have Muslim in the name, would be being described at the moment as a fascist political party. It has its roots in fascism. It is an extremist organisation. Its offshoot, the Hamas in the Gaza, when it got into power, immediately killed its opposition, and it hasn't had another election. It was just another one announced, July the 9th this year. There was meant to be another election in the Palestinian areas. The Hamas have said no. They are a one-vote, once political party, and we can't be so naive to think we can't... No. They cannot be so naive as to think that the Brotherhood, if they came to power in Egypt, will be anything other than a disaster for the region.
Well, do we have the right to intervene to prevent it?
No. Let me clarify this. So the following. It is very unwise for leaders like William Hague, David Cameron and Barack Obama to be saying who they would like to run Egypt. It's a choice for the Egyptian people, and they should remain silent. But that does not mean that behind the scenes and elsewhere you cannot say that the government, whatever it is that comes in Egypt, has to abide by, among other things, international norms, peace treaties, including the Treaty of Peace that has kept peace between Egypt and Israel for 3 decades now. And this is a very, very important thing, because if the Brotherhood comes in and says, as their leaders have said in recent days, that they will immediately block the Suez Canal and start a war with Israel, then we are collectively going to be, and the Middle East is going to be, in serious trouble.
How can you order a new government to abide by a treaty made by Mubarak?
Well, in the following way,
between Egypt and Israel. When you say you don't want intervention,
in the following way, by saying that by using soft power, by encouraging the country to go in a certain way, by making it clear that for Egypt to become a normalised country, it has to have a normal government.
None up there
and
in the check shirt, the blue check shirt. It's somebody with a striped shirt. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think the big difference between Eastern Europe and the Middle East is Islam. and some would say that Islam is not compatible with democracy.
Okay.
Tell that to the Indonesians.
Yeah,
Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world and is a democracy. So.
The woman up there on the left there. Yes.
I find what Douglas Murray is saying objectionable. He's saying in public, oh, the leaders, we mustn't say who should be in power in Egypt, but actually you're advocating behind-the-scenes action and covert action to influence it. And you also seem to me to be saying that the will of the Egyptian people, should they democratically elect the Muslim Brotherhood, who I notice you refer to as the Brotherhood, because it makes them sound more mysterious and dangerous, that actually we should start interfering then and telling Egyptians how they should vote and how their government should behave.
I hope I made it clear that I think that it would be regrettable for the Egyptian people, for the region and the international community if an extremist organisation like the Brotherhood took control of Egypt, did what...
So guys, I'm going to start off from the top. First off, I'm going to put this out there. I really feel like when it comes to prisoners being allowed to vote, because the first question obviously just has to, if I'm going to put it in a more firm way, I would say that are prisoners allowed to vote? Now, I know that you have to consider their fundamental human rights. With the example Douglas Murray gave, it is quite obvious that the man who killed the lady obviously deprived her of all her human rights. But still, it is very clear and very obvious that we humans, we have a fundamental human rights and we should not discriminate people. We should be bound to equality. I know it's going to be really hard for some people to accept what I'm saying, but I really feel like prisoners should be allowed to vote, not minding what they have done, but they should be allowed to vote, because no matter what, they are still citizens of that country. They are still obligated to choose who they want to run the country. I'm just saying that there's some prisoners in the prison cell who, you see, when it comes to prisoners, there's some people who are guilty. There's some people who have been thrown into prison for something they didn't do. That is, they are not guilty, but they've been found guilty. There are some people like, they are innocent people in prison. That's what we don't get. There are so many innocent people in prison. So I feel like these people should not be deprived of their rights. They should be allowed to vote because it is their right. And then when it comes down to terrorism, terrorism is not a cultural something. I feel like terrorism should be based on religion. You can say terrorism is also based on politics, but if I'm to rate it down to percentage, I would say terrorism based on religion should be about 75%, then 25% would be terrorism based on politics. Why am I calculating it this way? I personally believe that, you see, when it comes to terrorism based on religion, I feel like these people it's based on their beliefs. That's what they act on. You know, when you believe something, you act on that thing. I know a lot of people are going to come for me on this, but it's fine. I am not a rude person. I don't judge people. See, to the Muslims out there, I love you guys. Like, my friends, I have so many friends that are Muslims. I have family friends that are Muslims. I have relatives that are Muslims. And believe me, I am like so happy to have them in my life, because sometimes my mom is like, the way you relate with Muslims, the way you behave, like I actually behave like one sometimes. They said, the way you behave like a Muslim, are you sure you're not going to get married to a Muslim? And I'm like, I know they're not going to allow that. But I was also having this conversation with my roommates, and I'm like, it's not a bad thing to marry someone of a different religion, but it may have, like, you may have issues, you know, with families and all that. But I'm like, if God says that is your husband or that is your wife, then so be it. Nobody can change it, because God is in control of all of us. But guys, let's get right back to the topic, because I don't want to divert on this before I forget what I'm about to say. I would say this because, okay, back to the example I was given. Let's say, for example, in maybe my house fellowship, there's a Christian leader that's telling me, when you go to school and people are talking about their religion, or let's say, for example, when you are in class and people are sending things about other religions to the group, be it traditional worship, Islam, Judaism, whatever, you should stand up and give that person a dirty slap. Why would you do that? You are not supposed to do that kind of thing. If you are being taught this, no, it's just a scenario. It's not real. But if you are being taught this, believe me, when something like that happens around you, you will stand up, no minding, and give the person a dirty slap. So I believe that it's based on our beliefs, it's based on what we are being taught, it's based on what we've learned from day one that we work on. I learned that when I am stressed, when I am pained, when I have so many things going on, different situations, challenges all around me, and I don't have anywhere to turn to, I turn to God. I pray. That is what I learned since day one, and that is what I always do. If maybe I learned that, when I'm facing this type of thing, I should go outside and run about. When I'm going through this, I will go outside and run about. It's just like a child, a baby that has been given birth to. You see that baby, you teach that baby how to crawl. I believe that if your beliefs are, if anybody says anything bad about my religion, I should go after that person. What I was taught, if anybody says anything bad about Christianity, that or maybe they are insulting your God, or you're saying, look at you, you're a Christian, look at what you're doing, or what. I am meant to leave them to God. They say vengeance is for God. I'm not supposed to go right there and say, how dare you slap the person? Are you okay? I'm not supposed to do that. I'm not judging anybody. You can see that right now. I know maybe some of you will come out and be like, what are you saying? Look, I'm not putting it out there. I'm not judging anybody. I am just saying that terrorism could be based on beliefs. It could be based on religion. And when it's based on religion, it has to do with your beliefs. What do you believe in? Do you believe that when this person does this thing, or when this person says this about my religion, I'm supposed to go after that person? Is that what you believe in? Because it has to do with your beliefs. So I feel like a lot of people need to change their beliefs. They need to learn their religion again, because I know Islam to be a very peaceful religion. Look, believe me, I went to a secondary school where I would say high school for those of you that don't understand me. I went to a high school where I was with Muslims, Christians, Catholics. We were all joined together. And I'm not lying when I say I felt more at peace. I felt more comfortable with Muslims than my fellow Christians. No, I'm not saying that they were bad or anything. No. What I'm saying is that Muslims are peaceful human beings. They are like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, if you live around them, back home, I stay around Muslims. If you live around them, you know that they are very peaceful. They are very, very nice set of people. But then again, they are still the bad ones. And same thing goes to Christian. When they talk about terrorism, people come out to be like, it's just Islam, it's just the Muslims. Let me bust your bubble. They are Christians who are into terrorism too. When we talk about terrorism, what do you think about people going to kidnap people? Do you think it's only Muslims that kidnap people? Look at the situations that African countries are going through. Look there, for example, Nigeria. People that are doing all this kidnapping, ritual killings, they are Christians too. They are Muslims too. They are traditional worship too. So you cannot just say, oh, when you talk about terrorism, it's just Muslim. So I'm not going to personalize on one religion, but I'm going to say everybody is involved, and it all has to do with the beliefs we have. So I feel like people need to go back. They need to rethink about the beliefs. What do you believe in? You need to go back and think about it. I'm talking about this. I know that I'm spending a lot of time talking about this because I know this is the problem we are facing and we need to fix it. People are like, you have different beliefs that you know that, I don't know, but some people, I feel like, you know, deep down, this thing is not supposed to be so. Go back, start your religion from the beginning. I don't know if that's correct, but you should go back and think about it. Read, like, sit down and think. Go through your Quran, go through your Bible, and look at it. See, what I believe in is that when it comes to Christianity, I know I can talk for Christianity because I am a Christian. People that do bad things, ritual killing, kidnappings, go to your Bible and read your Bible. See, if you want to do things and say it in the name of your religion, then follow the rules. I see it like the Bible is like a guidebook for us to live our life. If you're reading the Bible and you say, oh, I want to be a Christian, whatever I do, I'll say it in the name of God, then whatever you are doing that you want to say it in the name of God should be in accordance to the Bible. So guys, lastly, I would say that I agree with Douglas Murray on, the last part where he was like, it is not right to come out to, say that this person shouldn't be bullying so and so. I feel it is wrong because personally, I feel like it's not wrong to have your own opinion on governance, on politics. It's not wrong at all because me, myself, I'm really young, but I have my own opinion on, politics. I can say, I don't feel this person should, enter power. I feel like this person shouldn't rule so and so place. Like, it's not going to be nice for the country. And like, these opinions are valid. You're allowed to have this opinion because as a human, you have right to, express yourself. But I feel like it is wrong to come out and say, let's say, for example, I'm a president of a country and I come out to openly say to the media, to the public that Hamas ruling Gaza is really wrong. They should step down from power. They are not doing anything to help the people. They are ruining the whole, they are just causing different conflicts and wanting to wage war. It is really, really disrespectful and it's very wrong. But then again, I can maybe be with my friends or maybe my house or like a private space and I'm saying, I don't really feel what Hamas is doing is right. Like, I feel like it is wrong to come out openly to say so and so person should be in power instead of these people that are in power. I feel it's wrong. So I'm going to stop on that note. But I know that I said a lot of things and I'm happy to have expressed myself from what I watched here, what we watched here. And if you're still here till this time, please do well to maybe ask questions because I am one to watch video and comment. Maybe I'm like, what you said, I don't agree with it. Trust me, I'll come for you in the comment section, but very politely. So if you feel like I said something along the line that you do not agree with or like it doesn't align with what you believe in, please put it down in the comment section. Let's have that debate. Let's talk about it. I will be ready and open to answer you, to reply to you. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and share this video to your friends, families, everybody, guys. I love you guys.